You're listening to the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast with Paula Engebretson, episode number 273. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you? What's happening? We are diving into part 2 of a 2-part series today. Last week in episode 272, we dove into something that I know so many of us deal with, which is feeling stuck. And knowing that there's something we want to do, we need to do, we have had on the list for so long, but no matter what we try, we can't seem to start. And we talked about the idea of choosing your discomfort, because we have either the discomfort of staying stuck and pushing off the thing versus the discomfort of leaning in and doing the hard thing. Both will feel challenging in different ways. And there's different times when we want to choose one or the other. We also broke down how to recognize which is which. How do we recognize when we are genuinely low on capacity and we need rest versus when it's more about resistance and the toddler brain might be throwing a bit of a tantrum? Now, last week, one of the big takeaways that we spent some time on is this. The more we delay a task when it's the resistance side of things, not when we're low capacity, but when we are in the resistance side of things, when we delay these tasks, and the more we delay these tasks, the more that dread compounds, which ultimately makes the task seem even heavier, potentially even harder than it originally was. I used the analogy of a backpack where it's like we're just putting in extra rocks to carry around. It feels emotionally heavier because we've been pushing the thing off, and that story compounds. The story about now I'm so behind and now they've been waiting on it and now it's going to be really hard. But by taking the smallest step forward, by taking action, we can start snowballing the effect and moving forward, building momentum and getting out of that resistance. Now, what we're going to do today is learn how to work with these areas where we're feeling the resistance. We're going to learn how to lean in and start taking those first steps, start building that momentum so we can actually move forward and get the thing done. So how do we do this? Okay, we're like, yeah, this all makes sense intellectually, Paula, but then the thing comes and I have to do it. How do we shift from knowing what to do to actually doing it? One of the most powerful tools that I like to turn to initially, okay, one of the most important initial tools is approaching the situation with curiosity. When we can approach the project, the task, the challenge with curiosity rather than resistance or judgment, we tend to open up to new ways of understanding what might be getting in the way, what might be holding us back. And sometimes that's all we need to start loosening the grip of the resistance. And the way that I love to tap into curiosity first will probably come as no surprise to any of you, through questions. You all know I love good questions, and that is where I love to start. Okay, so I am going to offer a handful of different questions that I invite you to write down, to keep them on hand, to have them in your notes app. You can go through the link in the show notes. They are beautifully laid out for you by the amazing Yolanda. Okay, so you can see all of the questions laid out in the transcript. But I encourage you to give these questions some consideration anytime you're feeling stuck. You don't have to use all of them. I think I have 6 or 7 to share with you. But pick 1 or 2 that tend to land with you and see if they help you start loosening that grip of resistance. Okay, so the first question that I like to ask myself is, if you know it's going to feel hard either way, what would it look like to choose the hard that moves you forward? Okay, if you know it's going to be hard either way, what would it look like to choose the hard that moves you forward? Again, think about it. If you're going to feel discomfort, no matter what, What would it look like if you leaned into the challenge that brings you to growth and accomplishment? What would be the first step if you decided to do that? Again, let's say you've been putting off decluttering your office or something. Avoiding it feels way easier in the moment, okay? But every time you sit down to work, you probably have your mind categorizing all the things on your desk and you start feeling more overwhelmed. You start feeling more stressed as you think about that mess. But choosing the hard thing and moving forward in a small step could look like picking up 5 items from your desk and finding a home for them. You still will experience the discomfort. It's still there. But this time, rather than feeling the discomfort of seeing all the things around you and having to categorize, ooh, that's a new word, categorize or catalog the items and have your mind have to count them all, instead, it's 5 less things that you have to register. It's more open space to do your work. By setting a small window of time around that, around the decluttering, that can make it so much more manageable. I have a client actually who just mentioned that she's doing this in her closet. And so she's starting with sweaters or with pants or with purses or shoes. And each day she's just doing one type of clothing or accessory, just one. And that helps her limit the scope so that it's not this flood of overwhelm. Instead, it's a focused willingness to lean in for that step. Okay, question 2. What is the short-term relief that you're getting from avoiding the task now? And how long does that relief last before the rumination and the dread start up again? Okay, so as I've mentioned, avoidance does give us that short burst of relief, but how long does that relief actually last? When we avoid something, I highly encourage you to tap in to notice how long that relief actually lasts before the dread creeps right back in. For some of us, it might be a bit longer. For me, it's about, 3 minutes before I'm stressing out about when I'm going to be able to get to it. Maybe it's an email, like I said, that you've been avoiding. That short-term relief comes when you go, oh, I'll deal with it later. Mark it as unread. I'll do it tomorrow. But for myself, a couple of minutes later, I'm like, oh, I still have to respond to that at some point. Okay. And that weight of the unfinished task grows heavier and heavier. So the relief is so fleeting. And the dread just lingers. So it can be really impactful to check in and ask yourself, okay, let's get real here. What is the short-term relief that we're getting when we put off the task? And how long does that relief actually last? Question 3. If you chose to do the task now, despite the discomfort, what will you gain on the other side? Is it worth the temporary discomfort? Okay, what is on the other side of this discomfort once you do the thing? If you lean in and do the challenging thing now, what is the sense of relief or freedom or satisfaction or accomplishment or a sense of pride that you will get to feel after? This question helps us shift our focus from the present discomfort into the future self, that future reward for them. So maybe you are avoiding, let me rephrase this. Maybe I'm avoiding leg day. I hate leg day so much. I know it's uncomfortable. I know I hate it the whole time and that I just complain about it. But I also know I feel such an energy boost, such a sense of accomplishment, and I love to feel strong on the other side. I know it's worth it. And so I trade that short-term dread, annoyance, complaining for the long-term gains, the long-term strength and energy and wellness and protecting my hips, okay? Question 4. What would it feel like to experience the relief of having this thing done instead of the ongoing heaviness of avoiding it? Okay, what would it feel like to experience the relief of having this thing done rather than carrying around the heaviness of avoiding it? Picture the emotional shift that can happen once you've completed the task. How will it feel to be free of that mental load that's otherwise kind of hanging over your head? I often think about it like you're carrying around all these extra rocks in your backpack, right? It's not just the books for school, but you just also have a bunch of rocks in there for fun. Let's take out some of those rocks. How might that feel? Question number 5. When you think about choosing your discomfort, okay, which option actually leaves you with future possibilities and freedom? So if we have 2 different types of challenge, 2 different types of discomfort, 2 different types of hard, which choice will lead you toward future possibility and freedom? This question invites you to think bigger. If you choose the discomfort of action, what opportunities might open up to you? So if I've been putting off a project for work, not doing it might be weighing me down, right? I might be feeling a lot of dread. But then on the other side, my brain's like, but if I do it, I'm going to feel overwhelmed. There's all these steps. Okay. So I have the weight of dread on the one side because I keep putting it off. It's weighing me down. It's taking up all this mental space. On the other side, if I do it, I might have to feel a bit of overwhelm as my brain goes, I don't know where to start. There's all these steps. But if I'm willing to lean into the overwhelm and figure out those steps, to throw the project in ChatGPT and have it help me break down the steps, when I'm willing to take that first step and then build on the momentum from there, I'm freeing up so much mental space, so much mental clutter for future projects, growth, downtime, okay? So choosing the hard of doing the work now opens up so much more freedom down the road. Question 6 of 7, how can you find small moments of ease or comfort when you're in the discomfort of doing the thing? So again, doing the task might feel uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean it has to be miserable, okay? So what are some small comforts that you might add to make the process more bearable, maybe even enjoyable, okay? So several episodes ago now, I made a passing comment. I don't even remember which episode it was, but I said something to the effect of, when I have a phone call that I'm really dreading, I will ask Ryan if he'll sit next to me when I make the call. And he'll sit next to me. I'll do it. It just feels less terrible because he's there with me. He's body doubling with me. I am telling you, the amount of feedback I have gotten on this one little passing comment is huge. People comment on it all the time. But having Ryan sit there with me makes the drudgery of that phone call way more bearable, right? He's there providing comfort. But again, it doesn't have to be another person either. Maybe you're cleaning the house and you're dreading it entirely, okay? But again, there's always ways we can add in a little bit of delight, a little bit of ease, putting on your favorite podcast or playlist to make it a bit more enjoyable. Adding these small comforts can, again, help ease some of that resistance so that we can take the next step and start building the momentum. And then a similar question to that, question number 7, is what is one small way that you could bring some pleasure or lightness into doing the thing? So again, just because that task seems daunting or is tough, it doesn't mean we can't bring it a little bit of delight, bring in a little fun, make it a little lighter. How can we inject a bit of joy into the process? So those are our 7 questions. Let me recap them here for us. So number 1, if you know it's going to feel hard either way, what would it look like to choose the hard that moves you forward? Number 2, what is the short-term relief that you get from putting off the task? And how long does that relief actually last before the dread or the rumination kick in? If you choose to do the task now, despite the discomfort, what would you gain afterward that is worth the temporary discomfort? What's on the other side of that discomfort? If you lean into the challenge now, what is the experience of relief or satisfaction or accomplishment on the other side? Number 4, What would it look like to experience the relief of having done the thing instead of the ongoing heaviness of avoiding it? Okay. What would it feel like to experience that sense of relief rather than carrying around the heaviness of avoidance? Number 5, when you think about choosing your discomfort, which option leaves you with greater possibility and experience of freedom? Number 6, how might you find small moments of ease or comfort in the discomfort of doing the thing? How might you incorporate those small moments of ease or comfort within the discomfort of doing the thing? And then finally, number 7, what is one small way that you could bring in some pleasure or delight or lightness into the current task? So these 7 questions are designed to help you gently reframe any resistance and start shifting into action. By tapping into the curiosity, you're breaking down some of those mental walls that might be keeping you stuck and helping you clear that path forward. So here's the main idea that I want to leave you with today. Just because something does feel uncomfortable, it doesn't inherently mean that we should avoid it. In fact, quite often, discomfort is exactly what we need in order to move forward and grow. Now, if we are past our capacity, then we do want to rest. Then rest is what will allow us to grow. But in these other situations, when it's more of a toddler tantrum or a teenage tantrum, it's often leaning into our growth edge that allows us to move forward. Think about lifting heavy weights, okay? Yeah, it definitely feels tough. It's supposed to be heavy. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. That is literally your muscles breaking down, okay? And if you're like me, you're probably counting the seconds, literal seconds until it's over. But we all know that when you lean into that comfort, talking is hard. When you lean into the discomfort of lifting the weight, you come out stronger on the other side, literally, okay? The effort pays off. And over time, what once felt quite heavy is actually seemingly lighter. It's the same amount of weight, but it feels lighter because you've put in the reps and you've built up the muscle. And it's not just about exercise, okay? This idea applies to all different areas of life, okay? Maybe you're presenting your ideas at a team meeting or something, and the first few times it might feel really uncomfortable. It might feel vulnerable. Your heart races, your palms sweat, you might stumble over your words. But the more you practice, the more you feel certain and confident in yourself because you're thinking, oh, I've done this before. I know how to handle this. And it doesn't feel quite so daunting anymore because leaning into the discomfort led to greater confidence and ease because you've put in the reps, you built up the muscle, and you know how to do it. Or maybe it's having a tough conversation. Whether it's addressing a conflict with a colleague or talking about boundaries with somebody you love, these conversations, you better believe they can feel super uncomfortable in the moment. We have a whole lot of thoughts about them. But avoiding them doesn't usually solve the problem, right? So when we're willing to lean into the discomfort, it can actually lead to resolution, clarity, and quite often an even deeper connection with that person. So I invite you to catalog areas in your own life where you have leaned into the discomfort and where it has paid off so that you can start showing your brain the many different situations where it is worth it. Take an inventory. Where have you leaned in and where have you grown? Where have you become stronger? And then building on that, remember, discomfort, it's not a sign that you're on the wrong path. Okay? If you're not past your capacity and it is instead a toddler tantrum, discomfort is usually the very thing that helps us grow. So the next time you face something hard, ask yourself, what's on the other side of this discomfort? What is the strength, the freedom, the opportunity that I could gain from leaning in? Because you have the power to choose which hard you want to embrace. And by choosing the one that moves you forward and building the strength and the resilience and the confidence, that's going to keep you moving forward, not only with this challenge, but the next one too. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you want to take this work deeper, if you want support in both coaching your brain into leaning into the discomfort and knowing when it's at capacity and you want to rest, and also to learn actionable strategies and frameworks and supports that we can put in place to smooth out some of the friction so that taking action isn't quite as intense, let's talk. I work with clients both one-on-one and in small groups. And if you'd like to learn more about either option, head to the links in the show notes. You can read more, sign up for a time for us to chat on Zoom. We'll talk about where you're at and any obstacles you're facing. We'll talk through the goals you want to reach, and we'll create a roadmap to help you make that happen. And from there, we can decide whether coaching is a great fit to help you on that journey. So head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/coaching for all the details. Also, if you want to learn my step-by-step approach to lock in a routine and make it stick, be sure to grab my free course called the ADHD Routine Revamp. You can tap through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/routine to sign up. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.